Each day through my window I watch her, as the great war sun prepares once more to break as dawn upon other pastures and battlefields of the world, withdrawing the letterings of daylight, not just from me, but from the words and names, the ranks and dominions of the military headstones in the dormitories that stagger the Menin road. She is working up the last golden rays of another day to illuminate each war gravestone there. For her, instead of boys and men sitting up in bed, as if the great star was a parent saying good night to them all, while she, unwilling, with sunset is closing the door. Since 1923, with a short break for the next war, in Belgium, 3 men have, sometimes at sundown, played in remembrance of the missing under a gate in the ramparts at 8 o'clock. By the time I stood there, as the traffic stopped in 1993, a few years ago, I was not alone. There were others, as I recall, drawn that day to remember, and in black, a few returning long enough for the notes only, before they stepped smartly back into the mortar between the stones and the rest, the only room to spare in the company they might grace, where the missing are arrayed on white stone perfectly dressed, every inch a soldier, every inch a space. It was just my imagination, but I recall a dereliction in that needy group of us. Still wearing that poppy when I met with Kevin, who knew I'd been and was with his father preparing to go to Passchendaele, a village described by those missing in words as no more than a brick stain in the mud, where his grandfather had been injured and taken as a prisoner of war. I felt again, for what it was worth, what it was I was reminded of that I had done wrong. Alas. Perhaps it was a measure of my own grandfather who died after that war from the gas, or something in a memory I have of his own Cockney boy that informed the coy feints that drew attention to the 3 as they prepared in front of each other, constraints of us all before our most serious work. So I said to Kevin that I was surprised I'd never written a poem about the way the 3 men gathered there. But as soon as I said it, I can visualize it all. Each day through my window I watch her as she passes by. Having heard them play, I realized what their endearing delinquency was for. It was so that, from the pavement, looking first at their feet, you might stand at ease and look their way, and not look down then, as they looked up and withdrew, each one a breath like the seas, so that you would follow from such a low point of the shore, and by that much higher their tribute could soar. It was just my imagination, but she was compromised there under the Menin gate, as the local volunteers gathered at dusk for the playing of the last post. I remember an almost unbearable levity, something too light of heart, that flickered a moment in this quiet part of a line as she threw me a kiss. An inference that the laughter of old comrades in the mud was a passing treasure of old needlepoint, too frail in Flanders to take away. And the light was something these 3 modest Belgian men played with for each other before they played. A woman they passed from hand to hand with a sense of each other and of mockery, having agreed for us all, after shuffling, to stand there still and remember the war. Perhaps it was a pantomime to keep them from harking back to the missing and the dead, a lilt before they stood in a line and blew, a spring in each step given back by the duckboards. Much ado about nothing. timid yet valiant, fighting to be seen and trying to hide. The vigour of the infantry in the presence of tears, or a new pretty girl in almond tears, as visible as the thin line where the sides change, as it changes in no man's land over the years. Maybe it was the prospect of another Jane, beautiful and frail from the lanes, or my own cock sparrow, my father, before she arrived there with me, that made them sink so low. Or maybe it was the muse of the war herself, weary of them there, so straight and tall, who fastened upon me as, once of her persuasion whenever the sun came up, vying now for my attention at a new time of day, falling now upon the epaulets of the men, and now on my shoulder, whispering of the old artillery, throwing in among those nearly faded transports the overture she knew only I had the power to save, buttonholing me, decorating me, as she had once sown with poppies the chalky earthworks and the communication trenches of the Great War, as if she entrusted Kevin with a robin for one of her favourites, and I had the white shoulders of a grave.